Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blob, where I shake my brain nipples every day to get some of that dirty YouTube money so I can do what I actually care about, providing hands-on, free to end-user technology education in Durham, North Carolina. Next week, we're having a class on AI and web scraping. We have more classes coming up. If you're interested, take a look at Silicon Dojo, silicondojo.com. Do remember, free to the end user is not free. That's why I do these videos. There's a donor box link down below if you want to throw a couple of dollars in to help support my free technology education program. And with that, well, first, before we get into the story, can I ask you a question? Ni hao, dear China people out there. Can I ask a question of my China people viewers? What is it with you and China cabinets? Is there something I am missing in the translation? Are you folks putting something in the ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever, and it's coming out with the words China cabinet? Because I've been getting these comments from people, and the first time I got it, I just thought it was weird. I thought it was a translation error. But now I've gotten something like 50 to 100 different comments of people talking about if I'm proud of my China cabinet behind me. And I don't know what the hell the Chinese people are talking about. This isn't a China cabinet. These are crappy IKEA shelves that I've had for... How long have I had these? For about 10 years now. So I have shelves. This is something we have in America. I don't know. I don't know what Chinese people have. Do Chinese people not have shelves? Is this a bridge too far? You can put a rover on the dark side of the moon, but you know, having a place to put your books and knickknacks, is that something that has not been invented yet in China? I don't know. Dear China people. What the hell is it about China cabinet? I don't understand what people are talking about. Anywho, if any of you all out there could answer that question, that would be ever so lovely. It's weird. You just sit there and you just look at the comment stream and you're like, what is it with you people in China cabinets? I don't get it. And it's not a cabinet either. It's just not a cabinet. It's shelves. Anywho, that's not why that's actually why I'm here. I really want to know why the hell people are talking about China cabinets all the time. But anyways, that's not why you're here. Why you're here is to hear about the isms of the Western world and how the Western world is using national security as a cudgel to beat the ever-loving crap out of Chinaman for ever and ever more stupid stuff. But they say it with a straight face. So, you know, it can't be stupid, right? So the latest thing is European countries are probing security loopholes in China-made electric buses. So apparently going after Nexperia taught the Europeans something. I'm not really sure what it taught the Europeans, but after their fight with China over Nexperia, they've decided to continue that fight, and now it's going into China-made electric buses. Spoiler alert, basically these buses get over-the-air updates, you know, like damn near everything does in the modern world. But since it's over-the-air updates from a Chinese company, that's something that everybody has to lose their mind about. Hey, can we have rules and regulations on over-the-air updates? Can we have liability laws on over-the-air updates? Can we build systems for how all companies should be able to deploy over-the-air updates to make sure no company screws over the customer? No. Because apparently in the Western world, when Whitey does over-the-air updates, there's obviously no problem at all with that. But when Chinaman do, So, anyways, yeah, this is. I actually was reading this, I'm like, oh my god. It's just so dumb at this point. It's just so dumb. Anyways, this is coming from, I do believe it is Gizmodo. Several European countries are investigating whether Chinese-made electric buses could be remotely deactivated amid growing national security concerns over China-built infrastructure across the continent. Here, let me save you a couple of tens of millions of dollars. Yes. Yes. I can tell you that right now. If they get over-the-air updates, and if there's no regulatory framework, and if there is no auditing process, and if there are no technological structures in place to prevent something like shutting down the bus with an over-the-air update, then in fact, China can, or a Chinese company can shut down a bus with an over-the-air update. Just like Tesla can probably shut down a Tesla vehicle with an over-the-air update, and Hyundai could probably shut down a vehicle with over-the-air update, and hackers have shut down Jeeps with over-the-air updates. Yes, basically, if there is a system in place for a device, whether it is a vehicle or whether it's a smartwatch or whatever else, to be able to receive updates where the end user does not have to approve the update coming in. Again, there's no mandated process for whatever happens. Then, in fact, yes, obviously, it is manifestly obvious that that could in fact happen. So hey, maybe instead of spending tens of millions of dollars investigating shit that's fucking obvious, maybe you could spend those tens of millions of dollars with coming up with systems for everybody to follow to make sure all of our devices and our vehicles and all that type of thing is secure from everybody. But no. Anyways, Norway, Denmark, and the United Kingdom are reportedly worried about what they call a potential security loophole. Fuckers, it's not a security loophole. It's a piece of functionality. It's a piece of functionality if it is used in a way that you don't like. It can cause you problems. That is not a security loophole. Was it CrowdStrike? Was it CrowdStrike? What is it, that company last year where they had direct access to the Windows kernel? They fat-fingered an update and, like, God knows, I don't know, 500 million computers got shut down, right? That's, if you build these systems in such a way, that is a problem that gets created. And so again, you should invest in actually being able to audit processes and verify systems and have systems designed in such a way that these vulnerabilities don't exist. But you know, that would require actual work, and by God, you ain't gonna have way to do actual work in 2025 nowadays. It's like, oh wow, that seems like some hard engineering work. You know what we should do? What? Hire the Indians to fix it. Like, fuck. Oh, love of God. Anyway, security loophole in electric buses made by Chinese manufacturer Yutong and everybody else. The Jinghao-based company is the world's largest manufacturer of buses by sales volume. The probes are the latest in a string of moves driven by fears that tech infrastructure made in China could be turned against its operators if relations with Beijing ever sour. Similar concerns led several companies in recent years to restrict the use of equipment from Chinese telecom giants Huawei and ZTE in 5G networks. Norway was the first to sound the alarm. Rudder, which operates about half of the country's public transportation network, including in Oslo, said last month that it tested a new bus from Yutong and a 3-year-old model from Dutch manufacturer VDL in an underground mine to see if they could be hacked. The company found the Yutong Group had direct digital access to its vehicles for software updates and diagnostics, while the VDL bus did not provide its manufacturer with the same access. So again, here's an interesting question, right? The whole thing with things like security and all that kind of thing is the more secure you make anything, the less viable, the less valuable you make that thing. Again, as I talk about, I got my criminal justice degree back in the 90s when we were still allowed to talk about terrorism. We could talk about terrorism because it was all so theoretical back then. I can literally not talk about the things we used to have open discussions about in class on YouTube because my channel will get banned. But one of the things one of my instructors talked about when we were talking about the whole security issue is, right, the most secure airplane that you could ever have is the airplane you drive into a hangar, you lock the door, and you never actually use the airplane. If the airplane never takes off, then the airplane can never crash. So if you want 100% rate on airplanes never crashing, basically you build the damn things, pull them into the hangar, lock the door, and then take a bus somewhere, right? So that's the thing, right? With security, right? The more security you have, the less vulnerabilities there are, but also the less functionality you have. So when you're looking at this, so Yutong, the Chinese vendor, basically does over-the-air software updates and diagnostics. At any time, you can call their customer service, they can pull up basically a dashboard for what's going on with your bus, and they can have an idea of what is happening. If they realize there's something weird with the power distribution or something like that, just like Tesla does, they can redo their programming and they can update the buses, in order to prevent breakdowns or that type of thing happening, right? Doesn't that sound like a value? If you're looking at a product from China and it has all of that functionality, and you're looking at a piece of shit from VDL that doesn't have any of that functionality, who do you want to buy from? But the curious thing, again, in the security world, right, that piece of shit from VDL, right, that garbage built by a European company that does not have the same feature set as a Chinese company, all of a sudden, that the shine on that is look at how secure it is, right? This behind the times vehicle that does not have the same functionality of the Chinese vehicle is actually superior. But that's the kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that you actually have to think about, and you have to plan for, and you have to accept the pros and the cons. And I'm kind of guessing here, if you went to Yutong and you said, hey, we're going to buy 50,000 of these buses, but we want you to remove the over-the-air functionality. Again, these buses are like hundreds of thousands of dollars a pop. They would probably do it. But you don't want to say that kind of thing. You don't want to say, hey, we've seen this subsystem in the buses that we purchased from Yutong, and therefore we want to make sure that in future purchases we would just want to make sure that that subsystem is removed. Like that. Saying that there is a subsystem that can be removed from a bus sounds different than saying, oh my God, this is a security loophole. Anyways, according to NBC News, the report stated that in theory, the bus could be stopped or rendered inoperable by the manufacturer. Yes, just like every fucking thing that gets over-the-air updates. I'm glad Europe is spearheading the process for making sure over-the-air updates are secure and the rest of it for customers from any company, right? Movia, a public transport provider in Denmark, soon afterward launched its own investigation, but noted that this kind of security risk isn't unique to China. Quote, electric buses, like electric cars, in principle can remotely be deactivated if their software systems have online access. Yes, he added that this isn't just a, quote, Chinese bus concern. It is a challenge for all types of vehicles and devices with these kinds of electronics built in. The UK is now the latest country to launch a probe into the issue. Quote, we are looking into the case and working closely with the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre to understand the technical basis for the actions taken by the Norwegian and Danish authorities. The country's Department of Transport told the Financial Times. So yeah. So basically, Chinese buses get over-the-air updates. Cue Whitey. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. Do you know what the Chinese people can do? And yeah, we're just gonna be getting more of this crap. We are just going to be getting more and more and more of this crap as time goes by. From a technology professional, right? If anybody in the fucking government actually listened to technology professionals, right? My argument for a lot of these systems, when we're looking at any of these kinds of vehicles, whether they're buses, whether they're cars, whether they're garbage trucks or whatever else, I would argue too many subsystems are basically being soldered to the board, right? So you look at like Macs, right? Mac. The reason everybody hates Macs, right, is the memory is soldered to the board. The RAM is soldered to the board. The CPU is soldered to the board. The whole 9 yards. So the problem is that it's not replaceable. It's not just not replaceable, but you can't remove it if there's a reason that you would want to remove it. One of my arguments, if I was a Chinese manufacturer, one of the things that I'll be thinking about is basically making things like the over-air updates a subsystem that you literally plug in to your main compute device, right? So with these electric buses, they do actually have to have compute in order to do everything that they do. So you could have like a drivetrain compute system, right? So this is a system when you push on the gas, when you push on the brake, when you hit the light, right? That will modify how the bus runs or whatever. But then on top of that, right, you could have a subsystem that you plug in. You could have a different box. Like literally just how you plug in a component to a computer. You could have a different box that gets plugged in, and that could be for things like over-the-air updates. So if you trust, Yutong, in order to do over the updates, then you can plug that in. Or maybe you could plug in a box from a different company, right? Maybe you come up with a national vendor for your over the air updates or whatever, that type of thing, and you plug that particular box into the system, right? If you want artificial intelligence, if you want autonomous driving, that would be an entirely separate box that you plug in the system. And that way, then you don't run into these national security concerns. It's like, hey, here, we're going to sell you the electric bus, and on the electric bus, you have the minimum compute that's required to make the electric bus go. Right? If you want to have our stuff, you can buy that for an extra $10,000. If you want somebody else's stuff, you can plug that into the box and then go from there. Right? And that is architecture, right? At the end of the day, right? With technology, so much comes down to architecture, how you design, build, and deploy the systems. If you build the systems in such a way, you can mitigate basically a lot of the security problems there. But the problem that we see is that that takes thought process, that takes work, that takes going through and figuring things out, and people don't really want to think about things that way. Again, it's like with Tesla, right? Should Teslas be able to have over-the-air updates just turned on by default? Should I be able to plug a different box into my Tesla to get the over-the-air updates? If you have a Tesla semi-truck, right? Tesla semi-truck that gets over-the-air updates, do you want to have that built into the main system? Or should that be a subsystem that can actually get plugged in, right? If a North American bus company, creates their thing, right? Should the compute device, should it be separated out so you have subsystems that can be plugged in, right? That would be smart, whether it's from hackers. And again, when you think about these vulnerabilities, we have to understand that it's simply that the vulnerability exists, right? The vulnerability exists, right? And then there's simply the vector for the attack, right? So if the vulnerability exists, a hacker could compromise it. Again, a nation state, and basically the company could compromise it for some reason. Somebody could fat finger something. Somebody could put a bad update, right? They screwed up the update. They shut down all the buses, that type of thing. And so that's where you have to be figuring out how to solve for the specific vulnerability. Ignore whether it's Chinaman, ignore whether it's hacker, ignore whether it's nation state, ignore whether it's fat finger. The vulnerability exists. So how do you design systems so that vulnerability doesn't exist, or you mitigate the danger of the vulnerability? And then for the countries, right, coming up with the rules and regulations for how things should be built in a more secure fashion. You could do all of that, or you could just scream Chinaman at the top of your lungs, and apparently that solves all your problems. It's true. It's true. I had a friend of mine. He was a white male in the United States. And I shit you not, he was going bankrupt. He was going bankrupt because he was addicted to drugs and addicted to gambling. He spent all of his money. His wife left him, lost the job, the whole 9 yards, right? He did not know what he was gonna do. And then he realized, he looked up to heaven. He screamed the word, "God, man," at the top of his lungs, and his drug addiction was over, his gambling addiction was over, his wife came back to him, and now he is a multi-millionaire that sails yachts on his free time. It's true. It's true. Like, you can either try to solve for the actual problems you have, or you can look up to the heavens and scream at the top of your lungs, "God, man." And that actually solves, that will solve your problems too. So anyways, what do you think about this? What do you think about European countries probing security loopholes over Chinese-made electric buses? Oh, Lordy. What do you think about, when it's a Chinese bus company, it's a security loophole, and when it's Tesla, it's a piece of functionality? Where do you think that they are going to come up with any kind of real rules and regulations and systems to protect all of us from dip crappery, no matter who is the one doing the dip crappery? And if you're a China person, can you please tell me, what the fuck do you have with my shelves behind me? I don't understand the joke. I just don't understand the joke. Anyways, put your thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate these videos, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a moron. Just be a real Lutnick and put that strong American comment down there. Do you remember what I actually care about is Silicon Dojo, silicondojo.com, free to end user hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is you want to do in Durham, North Carolina, where I have a class on AI and web scraping coming up next week. Take a look at silicondojo.com if you want to look at our schedule. Do remember, free to end user is not free. That's why I'm shaking my brain nips every day. If you want to throw a couple of dollars in to help the project, there's a donor box link down below. And with that, see you all later.